North Texas man's affair was front and center in court as prosecutors tried to convince a jury that he tried to have his wife killed. John Franklin Howard is on trial for attempted capital murder in connection to the 2012 shooting of his wife, Nancy.
At around 8:30 p.m. on August 18, 2012, the Carroll County Sheriff's Department in the city of Carrollton, Texas, received a dramatic 911 call.
Carrollton 911, what's the address of the emergency?
I've been shot, please.
What's the address, ma'am?
1525 Boulevard Way.
What's the phone number you're calling from in case I lose you?
939.
Tell me exactly what happened.
I'm being taken in my garage. I was getting out of my car. And a lot of young person shot me. Please help me.
Yes, ma'am, I've already got help started your way. Don't hang up, and I'm going to get some questions answered from you, okay? How many people was it?
It just wasn't aware.
Did you see him?
Yeah.
Was he white, black, Hispanic?
He was white at least. Dark hair.
How old?
I don't know, maybe mid to late 20s, 30s.
And what color shirt was he wearing?
I don't know. He was wearing a black cap. Oh, help me.
Yes, ma'am, they're already on the way. Just you stay on the phone with me, okay?
I'm trying.
Yeah, I know. I can't imagine how bad it hurts. I just want you to stay on the phone. Do you know, did he pull up in a car?
Did he what?
Did he pull up in a car, or did he run away?
I don't know. I never saw him. I guess he ran away. I don't know.
Okay. Are you by yourself?
Yeah.
Did your garage face the front or the back?
It was in the back.
Is that where you are right now?
I made it to the front. I'm going to lock my front door.
Okay.
I'm sitting in the chair by the front door. Oh, my God. Help me, please.
Yes, ma'am, they're already on the way. What's your name?
Nancy Howard.
Okay. All right, Miss Howard, like I said, they're already on the way.
Help me, Jesus. Help me, Lord Jesus.
Yes, ma'am.
Help me.
Yes, ma'am.
Help me.
Is that them?
Help me. I don't know what to...
Okay, I'm going to let you go, Miss Howard, okay?
I'm sorry, but I don't have the energy. Help me. Okay. Oh, help me. Help me, Jesus.
Nancy Howard, a 51-year-old woman, found herself in a harrowing situation on the evening of August 18, 2012, in Carrollton, Texas. Just an hour before the 911 call at 8:30 p.m., Nancy had returned home from a church baptism, a place her deeply religious family frequented. Earlier that evening, after stopping at Taco Bueno, Nancy pulled into her driveway, opened the garage door, and parked her vehicle. However, her arrival took a terrifying turn when a man suddenly confronted her, his arm around her neck and a gun aimed at her head. In a desperate struggle, Nancy managed to break free momentarily, making eye contact with the armed man. Adrenaline coursing through her veins, Nancy, rather than surrendering her purse, thrust her bag of Taco Bueno at the gunman. His anger escalated, and after pushing the food away, he demanded her purse again. This time, Nancy complied, but the situation took a tragic turn as the man shot her directly in the left eye before fleeing the scene. In the aftermath, Nancy, lying in her own blood, regained consciousness and crawled to her vehicle. Faced with a malfunctioning emergency response call button, she mustered the strength to walk inside her house. Disarming the home alarm, she assessed her injuries in the mirror and, realizing the severity, called 911 from her kitchen. Prompt response from police and medical personnel ensued, with Nancy unable to identify her assailant beyond describing a man around 20 years old with distinct features. A strong chin, facial hair, black-rimmed glasses, and a hat. Miraculously, despite the severity of her injuries, Nancy survived. The bullet had traversed her right temple, partially through her right eye, down her throat, and lodged in one lung. During this ordeal, Nancy's husband, Frank, away for work, received the distressing news. Contacted by their daughter, he experienced an emotional breakdown before hastily returning home. Upon arriving at the hospital the next morning, Frank, joined by his 2 daughters and son, faced the gravity of the situation as they learned about Nancy's promising outlook. The hospital staff marveled at the miraculous survival, considering the trajectory of the bullet through her head and throat, narrowly avoiding vital organs. In a state of shock and concern, Frank stayed by Nancy's side, regaining composure as they cooperated with the police investigation.
Can you update me on her condition, what the doctors have said?
Yes. Actually, it sounds bad when you say somebody shot in it, but actually very, very good. No brain damage, none of that. So she'll lose her left eye, but from there it will be cosmetic stuff.
What I know about her, it doesn't seem like she would have many problems with anybody. Has she?
Oh
had
no,
any problems
absolutely
with
not.
anybody?
Absolutely not. Nancy can be real giving and open. Somebody came to the door and they just needed money to get a hotel room because their car broke down. And
they came to your house?
To the house, yeah, at the front door, and she told them she's just so on good heart. I mean, she just said that she would try to help them find a hotel room. But, I mean, if there's you put up a reward or do anything like that, I'll
again
whatever. But anyway,
once
I'm just
we get to the
you
point
know.
where we've exhausted all of our investigative leads, that's another step we would take.
I'm just saying, just whatever we need to do.
Because obviously money can prompt people to give information. Would you have a problem if we ran an analysis on your cell phone? No.
As Frank continued to stand by Nancy's side, providing investigators with his cell phone, suspicion began to shift toward him. The examination of Frank's phone revealed a long-term affair with a woman named Susan, challenging his claim of being away for business. This prompted officers to request the hospital to restrict Frank's visits, leading him to disclose the affair to Nancy and their daughters. Facing growing suspicion, Frank sought legal counsel, causing the focus on him to slightly diminish. Investigators, now exploring alternative angles, delved into existing evidence, unearthing new findings. Among these discoveries was Nancy's purse, discarded in a nearby dumpster. Tracking down her cell phone still inside, they noticed her driver's license missing, suggesting the perpetrator's intent to verify her identity before disposal. A pivotal breakthrough emerged from security footage at the church Nancy had attended before the incident. The footage revealed Nancy being trailed by a silver vehicle. Upon her arrival, the vehicle followed a distinctive pattern, parking. A man entering the church, using the restroom, and returning to the car. As Nancy left, the vehicle resumed tailing her. Unfortunately, the footage's low resolution hindered identification of facial features or license plate details. Intriguingly, another officer shared a peculiar encounter from weeks before the shooting in the same neighborhood as Frank and Nancy's home. The officer had stopped a vehicle registered to an address hours away in East Texas, observing it aimlessly driving for several hours. This encounter, recorded on the cruiser's dash cam, added a layer of complexity to the investigation. During the encounter, the vehicle, occupied by 2 individuals, came under scrutiny. The driver identified himself as Dustin Hirams. When questioned about his presence in the area, Dustin initially claimed to be searching for his uncle's house. However, his narrative quickly evolved, shifting to his stepdad's house, and ultimately settling on a house belonging to a family friend named Mr. John. The varying explanations raised more and more suspicion.
White Honda Accord. So, how long have you been in Carrollton tonight?
Been trying to find my uncle's house for 2, 3, 4 hours.
Okay. The reason I asked is I saw you guys earlier, and I see you again, and it's
We were going in circles and circles and circles.
Can you step out of the car just for a second? I want to talk to you.
Despite being allowed to drive off that evening, investigators harbored suspicions regarding the involvement of the 2 men. Seeking clarity, they presented pictures of these individuals to Nancy, hoping for identification. However, Nancy discredited both men, asserting that neither was connected to the incident. Approximately a week after the shooting, investigators received an unexpected phone call from the county jail. Billy Earl Johnson, an inmate, claimed to possess information regarding the shooting and expressed a desire to communicate with the officers handling the case. Responding to this lead, an interview with Billy Earl Johnson was promptly arranged.
Tell me who you were visiting here, because now I'm confused. You said uncle, and then you just said it was
John. Okay.
Okay.
We always called him John.
Okay.
That was it.
So John's a friend of the family.
Yes, basically. We're not trying to cause no problems.
Billy Earl Johnson didn't spill the beans about the shooting until investigators made him a deal. The nitty-gritty of the deal hasn't been shared publicly, but one part of it made Billy spill details that could prove he wasn't making things up. So, Billy started describing Nancy's car.
You know, I mean, I got a reputation of being a badass. I mean, I ain't, everybody's claimed me to be tough and bad. I don't claim to be tough and bad. I'm mean. I'm gonna hurt you. If you jump on me, I'm gonna hurt you. 49 years old. I done been to the pen total 15 years. I got grandkids that I want to spend the rest of my life with. I want to be free, and I want out this weekend. I got the big ace in the hole, and I got the ball in my court on this. If y'all want this murder, this attempted murder solved, y'all need to work with me, because I ain't playing. Y'all want it, I'll give it to you in a fucking golden basket. I'm not giving up nothing until I got something solid on my end. I'll die with it.
I don't think this woman deserved what happened.
No, she sure didn't. But if
and she deserves a little bit of justice.
Yep, and she'll get it. But I want my back scratched too.
Maybe not from you.
I want my back scratched too.
Billy continued to withhold information about the shooting until investigators offered him a deal. The full details of said deal have not yet been made public. However, one of the stipulations required Billy to provide information that could confirm the legitimacy of his claims. So Billy began to describe Nancy's vehicle.
She ain't had it long. It's brand new.
Okay.
It's dark blue. It's a four-door. It's got like a hat.
When the officers believed Billy's info was trustworthy, they made a deal. That's when Billy started revealing the details of the attempted murder. It seems Mr. John had heard some stories about Billy, and one random afternoon, Billy got a call.
I was laying on the couch and the phone rang. How he got my information from them, I don't know. He just said, you don't know me, told me his name. Said, I don't know you, but I was caught word that you might be the one to do a job for me. He wanted it done in an accident so it wouldn't come on him. Like a carjacking, purse snatching. There was two of them that done it. One driving, pick them up, and one that pulled the trigger. Now, which one drove, which one pulled the trigger, I don't know, but I know both of them. That number right there?
1764.
That's John's contact number, if he still got the phone.
That's how you call him? How many conversations have you had with John regarding this being done?
Numbers.
More than 10?
Yeah.
More than 20?
50, 60.
Billy turned out to be a key player in an East Texas gang called the Hee Haw Gang. He revealed that Mr. John was the one behind setting up the plan to shoot Nancy. Billy also said he knew other people who could confirm his story. One of them was the guy we saw cheering during the traffic stop, Dustin Hirams. Surprise, surprise, Dustin was actually Billy's stepson. The investigators got in touch with Dustin and brought him in for questioning.
You're a good kid. You got yourself messed up in a little thing, but you're a good kid.
See that you're not wrong. The Christian woman there. That's it. You know,
Who shared with you that she's a Christian woman?
John did.
Even though Dustin was pretty high on methamphetamine during the interview, he didn't mince words. He made it crystal clear that Mr. John was a big spender, tossing money around trying to get someone to off Nancy. Dustin emphasized that there were more than a dozen people who knew about this whole murder-for-hire plan. One of these folks was Charlie Louderman, a guy Billy had hired to be his bodyguard. By this time, Charlie was already in jail, so the investigators set up an interview with him.
So have you heard about the shooting in Carrollton?
Yeah, I heard.
Everybody else heard about it, and you know who it's involved in?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Billy Earl Johnson and Mr. John.
Mr. John. So you know Mr. John?
Yeah. Now, Billy Earl's out there, and he is one mad son of a bitch. This man, he tried to get me to kill that woman.
Did he really? Did he could you want to do it? Yeah, I want the truth.
You got that recorder on? Yeah.
I've got to have the truth.
Yeah, you goddamn right. That son of a bitch tried to get me to kill that woman.
Charlie backed up Dustin's story, confirming that Mr. John was the one throwing around the cash. Billy Earl Johnson, initially hired to carry out the hit on Nancy, decided he wasn't up for the job. Instead, he tried to pass it off to others, taking a cut each time. When that didn't work, Billy conned Mr. John, spinning tales about cops being nearby or too many people, delaying the job and asking for more money. Mr. John, falling for it, provided cash initially, but as Billy demanded more, he switched to wire transfers. Charlie also shared that he knew someone with a picture of Mr. John. As investigators waited for the picture, they traced the wire transfers. It turned out that Mr. John, who was actually John Franklin Howard, also known as Frank, Nancy's husband of 29 years, had sent a whopping $850,000 to various members of the Hee Haw gang. Once they got the picture, the pieces fell into place. Frank was promptly arrested and charged with solicitation to commit capital murder, held on a $1 million bond. Despite being highly regarded in the community, friends and family rallied together to post his bond soon after his arrest. While awaiting trial, investigators focused on the two names Billy provided as the triggerman and getaway driver: Billy's nephew, Michael Speck, and another man named Michael Lawrence. Since Billy couldn't specify their roles, there was uncertainty about who would face an attempted murder charge. To unravel this, investigators combed through Billy's jailhouse phone calls, leading them to a familiar voice.
Hey. Hello? Hey. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. What's happening?
Hey, I can get out of here. It's going to take about a month to get out of here, but I need some money.
Well, I mean, what happened to Michael? I gave him a bunch of money.
Well, how much you give him?
And I don't even know anymore. It's been so long.
You give him 20?
At least.
See, I just wrote Stacy a letter and told her that he in other words, he probably me.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is that, so I mean, it's that keeps happening. So I got nothing left.
So where'd that money go?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Where did all that money go? Because that's what he's got it all. I told him, I said, this is the last I got, and he said he'd go take care of everything. And I have heard absolutely nothing from him since. So that's my problem. I got nothing left.
Yeah, nothing.
No, I gave him everything.
There ain't nothing you can do.
I gave him everything.
While the recorded conversation strongly pointed towards Michael Speck being the trigger man, a call from Misty Ford, Michael Lawrence's fiancée, added another layer. Misty claimed that Michael Lawrence had confessed to shooting Nancy, presuming she was dead, with Michael Speck serving as the getaway driver. Although Misty's statement was incriminating, officers remained uncertain about the roles each played, leading to both Michael Lawrence and Michael Speck being charged with aggravated robbery and conspiracy to commit Nancy Howard's murder. Throughout the investigation, Nancy Howard steadfastly maintained her disbelief in Frank's involvement. They had been happily married for 29 years, raising 3 children together in a close-knit religious family deeply involved in the community. Frank's character didn't align with someone capable of such actions, according to Nancy. However, her perspective shifted as they awaited Frank's trial. She noted a change in Frank between 2009 and 2012 when he took on a new role as the CFO for a company supplying resources to the military in Iraq. During this time, he became more confident yet mysteriously different. Frank's trial unfolded in August 2014, bringing his infidelity to the forefront as the likely motive behind the alleged murder-for-hire scheme.
North Texas man's affair was front and center in court as prosecutors tried to convince a jury that he tried to have his wife killed. John Franklin Howard is on trial for attempted capital murder in connection to the 2012 shooting of his wife, Nancy.
Well, yeah, court just officially went into recess, ending week 1 of testimony here, and it ended with the wife that investigators believe Howard tried to get rid of, and the other woman rather, they say might have been partially the reason for it. John Frank Howard's double life was front and center in the closed-to-video Denton courtroom today, but the pictures inside show the emotional ride he took as his wife and mistress both told their stories. After detailing the night she was shot in the face, Nancy Howard talked about her difficult rehab, but the even more difficult moment when Howard told her by phone in Parkland Hospital that he was having an affair with Suzanne Leontiff. Prosecutors even showed a photo taken from Howard's desk in his Grapevine office of him with Leontiff and her kids. Now, she told the jury she was in love with Howard and living with him in a condo in California. but says she was getting fed up with a divorce from his wife being promised but never actually happening. But the defense says the affair is not the question in this case. They're not even questioning that it happened. Attorney Ricky Parrott says his client isn't on trial for adultery. This is about the murder for hire charge. That will likely become focus next week when the people Howard's accused of hiring are scheduled to testify.
During the trial, the prosecution laid out multiple pieces of evidence pointing towards Frank's involvement. They presented phone records showing calls between Frank and Michael Speck, including some on the day of the shooting. Additionally, they had pictures of spreadsheets detailing every transfer Frank made to the Hee Haw gang. The evidence also included a thorough breakdown of Frank's 3-year affair with his mistress, Susan. This affair involved a second home, a condo, and documents illustrating that Frank had given Susan $500,000 in cash, spending about $1.9 million on their lifestyle. A text message from Susan weeks before the shooting was also brought forth, which the prosecution believed might have triggered the events. The message conveyed Susan's frustration with being alone and demanded action by Friday, or a decision to move on. Frank responded with a love letter, acknowledging the situation and expressing that he knew what he needed to do. In response, the defense argued that Frank was being blackmailed. They also questioned the credibility of the prosecution's witnesses, suggesting there were doubts about the reliability of their testimony.
I do not believe as reasonable people you can convict someone on the testimony of the kind of people they brought in here that their house of cards has to be built on. And it starts with Billy Johnson, and it ends with Billy Johnson. Because I do not believe that's the kind of evidence in this country that we want to use to convict someone of a crime to deprive them of their liberty if they're convicted.
The defense further asserted that the notion of Frank orchestrating the murder of his wife of 29 years as a way to end the marriage was preposterous. They pointed out that Frank had already experienced a divorce in the years before he and Nancy got together, challenging the prosecution's narrative about his motives. Ashley, Jay, and Brianna took the stand to testify on behalf of their father, portraying him as a kind and compassionate man throughout their lives. Although they were not present for the majority of the evidence presentation, whenever they were in the courtroom, they sat behind Frank. During the closing arguments, the prosecutor labeled Frank as sick, citing an email he sent to Nancy on the day of the shooting as evidence.
Where in the world is any evidence been told you that divorce is unacceptable to Mr. Howard? He's already had a divorce. He's been married once. Look at the evidence and ask yourself if that's what that means.
The trial stretched over almost 3 weeks, but remarkably, the jury reached a decision in just 2 hours.
I know you have a busy day today, because he knows her schedule. He's provided it to the two Michaels. So I will try to call you sometime today. I love you and can't wait to get home to you. That's sick. That is sick. He wanted to get home to her casket. That's what he wanted to come home to.
John Franklin Howard was found guilty of solicitation to commit capital murder during the sentencing phase. Richard Raley, Frank's ex-boss, took the stand. He was the man who had hired Frank to work as a CFO from 2009 to 2012, the same years Nancy mentioned a change in Frank's behavior. Richard informed the jury that over the 3-year period they worked together, Frank had systematically embezzled over $30 million from him. This embezzled money was used by Frank to pay the Hee Haw gang for their criminal activities. Prosecutors argued that, in addition to extramarital affairs and a growing disdain for his wife of nearly 30 years, Frank must have known that a divorce would expose his financial misdeeds. Consequently, John Franklin Howard was sentenced to life in prison.
The Denton County man convicted of trying to hire someone to kill his wife was sentenced to life behind bars. The jury's decision for John Franklin Howard came earlier today. Yesterday, the same jury found him guilty in the murder for hire case. NBC5's Brian Scott is live at the courthouse with the details. Brian?
Brian, after nearly 3 weeks of arguments in this one, John Frank Howard's fate is sealed. he will likely never walk free again. Today, a Denton County jury sentencing him to the maximum, life in prison, after convicting him this week of attempted capital murder. The motive, they said, was an affair he admitted to having with a woman in California. An emotional Nancy Howard told John Howard after sentencing that she had loved him dearly and he tried to take everything from her, destroying their family in the process. The defense says they will appeal, but they were prepared for the worst.
He's exactly where he needs to be. We're very thrilled with the verdict we did receive, especially it was very comforting to Nancy Howard.
Now, the Howard's adult daughter, Ashley, was also in the courtroom for sentencing today. Obviously an emotional day for her, and she declined to comment. However, all three of the Howard's kids have stood behind their father during the trial, testifying they didn't believe he did it.
After Frank's sentencing, Ashley, Jay, and Brianna left the courtroom visibly angry, and all three of them departed without saying goodbye to their mother. In the trials of the two Michaels, accused of being the triggerman and getaway driver, Michael Speck turned on Michael Lawrence, asserting that he was, indeed, the shooter. Michael Lawrence was then sentenced to 60 years behind bars, but he successfully appealed in 2017. The grounds for the overturning of his conviction were related to misleading evidence about the murder-for-hire scheme. He was retried and found not guilty. However, the prosecutor decided to change Michael Lawrence's charges, putting him on trial for participating in the conspiracy to commit the murder of Nancy Howard. He made a plea agreement and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Meanwhile, Michael Speck, who testified against him, received a 12-year sentence. Surprisingly, Billy Earl Johnson has never been charged for his role in the murder-for-hire plot.
It was a living nightmare.
That is how Nancy Howard describes the last 2 years. Yet looking at her today, you would never know the pain she has endured. In August of 2012, as she drove into her garage, a gunman pulled a weapon and demanded her purse.
I physically shoved my purse into his chest and I said, "Jesus, save me." And he shot me.
Nancy was shot in the face.
Gurgling blood, having a hard time breathing.
She knew she needed help quickly.
I heard God speak to me and he said, "Get up, get up."
Bleeding, she first crawled and then was able to get up and walk into her kitchen and call 911. The bullet entered her temple and lodged in her right lung. Her survival, miraculous.
It is a miracle, and that's my God. My God is more powerful than a speeding bullet.
While recovering in the hospital, Nancy got a call from her husband of more than 30 years, Frank Howard.
He tells me that he needs to tell me something that is going to come out, which is that he had been having an affair.
While that news was a surprise, Nancy soon got more shocking news, that Frank had been arrested for hiring a hitman to kill her.
I was in disbelief. I truly was in disbelief.
Police say Howard planned the hit for more than 3 years so he could be with his lover, who he lavished with expensive homes, money, and gifts. This month, Frank Howard went to trial. His mistress took the stand.
What was it like to face your husband's mistress in court when you saw her in court? Everything doesn't sound pretty, but everything from the bottom of my guts wanted to just throw up. I was just sick.
We, the jury, find the defendant.
Frank Howard was convicted and given a life sentence. Afterwards, Nancy got to address him in court.
I told him I forgive him for the lies, for the adultery, for busting up our family.
Nancy lost her right eye, the bullet still lodged in her lung. Her recovery has been excruciating, but she turned to her faith to strengthen her. It was also her faith that allowed her to forgive those involved.
I still feel some very deep hurt, but if I wasn't able to forgive, bitterness would just take over, and my life would be controlled by that bitterness, by that anger, by that rage.
She says God didn't spare her life to be angry, but to turn her pain into purpose, to tell her story of survival, to help other hurting women.